The time is 9:33, and I'd like to call the 263rd meeting of the DC Water Board of Directors to order. This meeting is being held electronically, and with that, let me ask Ms. Manley, our board secretary, for the roll call to establish a quorum.
Good morning. I'll be calling the roll for all board members since we're not face to face to ensure that I have a quorum and for attendance purposes too, and to include certain staff members. Chairman Wells,
Present.
Jed Ross,
Present.
Crystal Brumfield,
Present.
Joe Leonard,
Present.
Rosh Nabat,
Here.
Reverend Kerr,
Present.
David Franco,
Here.
Howard Gibbs,
Here.
Ellen Boardman,
Here.
Anthony Giacola, Emil Thompson,
Present.
Ivan Frischberg,
Here.
Fariba Kasiri,
Present.
Adriana Hodgberg,
Present.
Adam Ortiz,
Present.
Stephen Chauffeur,
Present.
Major Riddick,
Present.
Joseph Gill,
Here.
Floyd Holt,
Floyd Holt present.
Lavinia Baxter,
Here.
Randy Bartlett,
Present.
Sarah Moss, David Gaddis,
Here.
Matt Brown,
Here.
and Mark Battle.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum for board members.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Can I get a motion to approve the March 5th, 2020 meeting minutes?
This is Crystal, so moved.
Okay, and when you do make a motion, or just note who you are. So who's moved to approve?
This is Crystal, I'll
Need a
move.
Okay, and then a second?
David Franco, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
all opposed? Minutes are approved. So the next item's chairman's overview. A couple of things. First, I want to say that we're going to continue with our scheduled committee meetings, obviously doing it by phone conference so that DC Water can continue to do their business and not have to ask for special meetings. But since we'll only be doing essentially items for approval for the board, the meetings should be brief, and our key staff members for each committee at DC Water will let us know ahead of time if they have no items, and then they will the meeting will be canceled. That, but otherwise we will continue with our schedule so that to be sure that DC Water is able to continue doing their business. So we are continuing with the regular meeting schedule. Next, I need to amend the agenda to add resolution number 2036, authorizing the 2020 loan term agreement and the sale and setting terms and details of Series 2022A subordinate funding refunding bonds. And so that will be added to the agenda. And then I would want to note that we will have an executive session. And so with that, we'll go into committee reports. EQ and Ops, Howard Gibbs.
Excuse me, Chairman Wells.
Yes.
Apologize. There was the email that sent out that we need to also amend resolution 2037. I received word that it was left off the agenda this morning. I sent it out to all board members this morning. It's the MOU between DDOT and DC Water.
Okay, let's note that that's been added as well.
Thank you.
So, okay. So let's move on to the report from Howard Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Excuse me. I hope everyone's staying safe. The Environmental Quality and Operations Committee met on Thursday, March 19th. Excuse me. We started our meeting as usual with a report from Sekele Tesfaye on the performance of the Blue Plains Advanced Wastewater Treatment Plant. Mr. Tesfaye reported by exception, noting that all performance parameters were excellent, excuse me, and all permit requirements were met. He also provided a briefing on the operations and maintenance costs for the wet weather treatment facility. We moved on then to action items. We have 9 joint use and 3 non-joint use contracts listed for board approval today, and they're listed in the report. Excuse me. We also had a report on asset management from Mrs. Mandy LeBlanc, and a report on SCADA improvements from Ms. Karen Green. The asset management report states that centered maintenance was going to be used, and that they looked at the principles, namely preserve system function, identifying how functions are defeated, identifying priorities, and then for high critical failure modes, defining applicable tasks and selecting the most effective one. Ms. LeBlanc informed the committee that 7 systems analyst steps have been undertaken and gave us the results for the pilot project. Then Ms. Green briefed the committee on DC Water's SCADA improvement efforts. The Department of Pumping Operations, in collaboration with the Department of Engineering and Technical Services, has created SCADA standards for project logic controllers hardware, OIT hardware, PLC programming standards, graphic standards using high performance situational awareness concepts, alarm prioritization and management. To date, those standards have been implemented for 5 sewer pump stations, sewer and water overview pages, Fabry Dam sites, and existing stormwater pump stations. The expected completion of this is in mid-2021. In conclusion, Ms. Liability construction has yielded positive results and increased the productivity and the sense of teamwork in the group. And after that, our meeting was adjourned at 10:43.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gibbs? Okay, there being no questions, we'll move on to the Governance Committee report. Ms. Boardman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Governance Committee met on Friday, March 20th. And we had 3 items. First agenda item was from Corey Gray, giving us our annual report on DC Water Works. His report to us and the minutes reflect details on the numbers, in particular classifications and the success of the program. And I'm going to refer you to that report for the details. Long and short on the goals that we have for 51% of the total contractor workforce being local residents and 60% of new opportunities being filled by local residents, we've met those goals. And again, the numbers are in Corey Gray's report to the committee and the minutes. Mr. Gray also reported on the CDL training program, which again is continuing successfully. We have local resident goals, and we're meeting those as well. We also have a Department of Facilities training program. That is one in which we have subsidies from the district through the LEAP program, Learn, Earn, Achieve, and Prosper. And we are able to provide DC residents with training in various facility type trades. We have 3 participants already in that program. We also received an update on green infrastructure. again, a DC Jobs program. We've had 2 cohorts run through the program with 33 participants, and we have a very high graduation rate, and that is moving along as anticipated. Corey also gave an update on the apprenticeship program. We have 14 participants enrolled in various classifications. And finally, we have our senior community service program, which has 2 participants working part-time as a data analyst in our materials management department as well. The second action item was, again, from Mr. Gray, and it was a continuation of his presentation at the January governance meeting on proposed changes to DC Water's business development plan. And this is a comprehensive program that is, the focus is on giving us a better opportunity to put onto our project disadvantaged local and small firms and revamping the certification requirements, the good faith requirements, adding in outreach programs and mentor protege programs. Corey has done a magnificent job putting this together, and I appreciate the time and effort he has spent giving the committee 2 presentations. We're not done yet. The committee, with the consensus of the committee, agreed we are going to have a recap at the May meeting, and then hopefully we will be prepared after that meeting to move the amended program forward to the board at the June meeting for approval. So there will be more on that. The final agenda item was presented by Gregory Hope as an amendment to the DC Water bylaws. In short, section 5.01 is to be amended, changing the duties of the EQ and Ops Committee. One piece of their current program is to deal with customer service issues. And after discussion at the committee level, EQ and Ops, and the executive committee, this really was the source of it, the decision was made to recommend moving the customer service function to DC retail rates. Following that recommendation by the executive committee, the chairs of DC retail rates and EQ and Ops approved, and with that, our committee also approved moving that action item forward to the board today. You will see that in resolution 20-30. And with that, Mr. Chair, I have nothing further. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Boardman regarding the government's committee report? Okay, let's move on to Finance and Budget Committee. Major Riddick.
Let me apologize ahead of time. I'm sort of jumping in and out. This is my 3rd Zoom or teleconference meeting this morning, and still trying to click back and forth. COVID-19 has us a little bit on lockdown over here, trying to figure out how we get through this. I'm going to jump through this. I have not internalized all of it. All I want to tell you from the start of this, and just in case you've been able to look at the diligent boards, is that it was probably our longest finance and budget meeting, and somebody indicated that it went very long. I'm not trying to have the report be that long, so I may skip some stuff that Matt or the financial bond folks may turn around and go, well, you missed some important things. So just know that in advance as I roll through this. This is a special time in our country and the world with this pandemic, and we're looking also from a financial budget standpoint what the COVID-19 is doing with its impact. We started our meeting at 11:05, and Matt Brown immediately began to focus on the impact of COVID-19 on DC Water's operation in his financial report. So he informed the committee that the staff were working from home and coming into the office as we're doing around the world here, and trying to make sure that we can get things done in a timely fashion. He also reported that the finance staff were trying to quantify the impact on two different scenarios, a 3-month and 6-month. And we're trying to figure out where that curve is, of course, and how we can flatten it out. So that's still anybody's guess, but maybe we should invite Dr. Fauci into the meeting and he can tell us. We will not know the full revenue and expenditure impacts for some time, of course, and the situation is somewhat different and unusual and unprecedented. So we are making every effort to keep operations to a reduced level and trying to make sure that staff are working as best we can in this situation. It's broken down into 2 shifts, and they're trying to deal with making sure everybody continues to work and get paid for a full shift. Mr. Brown also informed the committee of the potential revenue impact of the actions currently being undertaken, including waiving late fees. Those are things that are happening across the country and not just at DC Water. That, of course, has an impact to increase the delinquencies from 1 million to 2 million monthly, and it could generate as much as $7 million in terms of waived fees, which, of course, has an impact to be fully assessed in the future. He further explained that increases in consumptions are expected for both residential and multi-family customers of approximately 10%. Folks are at home, and so hanging out, social distancing, quarantining, and being bored, but they're using the water. There will also be a reduced consumption from the commercial side, as you can imagine, because of so many businesses being closed. A 30% reduction is expected, and we're thinking that this 3-month pandemic period that we could have a revenue impact of somewhere between 15 and 25 million, and he will continue to monitor that and keep us informed along the way. And he indicated that the expenditures right now are ahead by 9.4 million. He mentioned that even with the purchase of some supplies and services to ensure the safety of employees, the costs responding have not completely at this point been significant, but he is trying to make sure that if there are COVID-19 related expenditures, that we seek reimbursement from the federal government. Somewhere in that $2.2 trillion CARES Act is some money for DC Water. Ms. Brown mentioned that the debt service costs will increase, of course, based on the current interest rates on variable debt portfolio and commercial paper. He anticipates that the projected underspending and operating budget will offset some of the revenue shortfall, and at this time, the management does not anticipate the need to transfer anything from the rate stabilization fund, but to be looked at as we move into the summer. Then Mr. Brown reported that DC Water has been contacted by Fitch, and we expect that other agencies will also reach out to other public entities. David Franco wanted to know if there's any potential downgrade impact because of what's going on, and Mr. Brown indicated that modest decrease in revenue and not expecting the downgrade, which is it corresponds with some of the things we look at in the county with a AAA bond rating that we're trying to protect. We know our revenues will be down much further than DC Water's, but we have a strong fund balance, and we are trying to use very little of that, and that's what Mr. Brown is doing in order to protect our rating. Our budget director, Ms. Oyeyemi, indicated in the financial report that for the 5th month, approximately 42% of the year completed DC Water's expenditures and revenues are on track with budgetary expectations and targeted metrics as well. The revenue is expected is slightly ahead by 8.2, which is a good thing given where we are, and the operating expenditures at 17.9 million, or 7.5% below the budget, which is good. She also indicated that the IMA operating settlement is ongoing, and we will continue to watch that and get further updates. We looked at an operating revenue to be around 312 million, and both the federal and wholesale customers have made their quarterly payments. She stated that the total operating expenditures are at 220.3 million, which is consistent with the spending from last year. This is sort of tracking well. The capital disbursements at the end of February were 128 million, or 71 million below the budget. Given what's going on, that's expected to probably continue because of sort of the change in operational status for the operation because of COVID-19. The operating reserve balance, including the rate stabilization fund, totaled $270 million at the end of February, excluding the restricted and unrestricted account balances. Other detailed reports are included, and you can sort of refer to those. We moved into the investment program update after that, and of course, as many of you know, your 401ks are not looking well. In our portfolio on the public side as well. Nelson Bush for PFM provided a market outlook and an interest rate update. He then discussed DC Water's portfolio and performance. He began stating that the United States economy up through February and prior to today, the economy was growing steadily actually, but for more than 10 years straight, and we were in a good place, but of course, then came the train wreck. He said that the COVID-19 impact on U.S. manufacturing is, or has impacted manufacturing, and we don't know exactly what the comeback is going to be on that. The two-year yield began to decline from 3% downward, signaling the market is anticipating turbulence ahead. I think we're in the middle of that turbulence right now. You've seen what the stock market has done. The short-term yields, such as 30-day and 90-day treasury bills, are yielding a -5 or -6 basis points. That's a little unusual and possibly unheard of. As a result, many investors around the world and the United States have been investing their money in cash over the last 6 weeks. That always puts public entities in a precarious situation when they need to borrow money. If you are a new investor, you would experience negative gains if you try to do that. So that means be very cautious and be aware. DC Water has experienced a significant market value gains from government securities, even as the market declines. The challenge, however, in the marketplace now is that investors are pulling their money from other places, and like prime money market funds, and investing in government money market funds that have caused yields to spread to widen significantly. So we are in just a cautious period in the federal government. We can some of this and jump down to the fact that Mr. Franco wanted clarification on the forecast given the situation. I made some comments on it. Mr. Bush went on to discuss DC Water's portfolio and how they are managed. We went into issue around the replacement of the Helaba credit facility supporting commercial paper program, and Mr. Brown, the managing consultant for PFM, provided an overview. DC Water maintains $150 million in the commercial paper program, split into two scenarios, or two series actually, to provide short-term financing for taxable and tax-exempt. The program requires the bank to provide a credit facility which provides liquidity and is used to pay investors upon maturity and issuance of commercial paper. He indicated that the Helaba, which we had used, decided to exit the business, so the existing facility must be replaced and cannot be extended. And so we went into various scenarios to deal with that. DC Water conducted a competitive procurement process to obtain a replacement liquidity facility. TD Bank had the best bid. TD proposed a fee of 23 basis points for a 5-year term, and Mr. Brown stated that this was the lowest bid, and that we would, as a reduction of 3 basis points for a 5-year term. The other consideration was award. The other consideration for the award was the credit quality of TD Bank, and they went on to say that was the reason why we looked at that, gave a consideration, and as part of the recommendations going forward. Mr. Brown also reported that TD Bank's credit facility is supporting the 2014 Series B1 and 2 bonds, and the DC Water issued a $100 million variable rate demand bonds in 2014 that are currently outstanding. The facility expires, however, in July 23rd of this year. Brown stated there are some benefits in DC Water accepting the proposal from TD Bank. He discussed some of the benefits, and we eventually, as a committee, went along with that. The legal fees associated, however, with replacement of this would have been $100,000 to $150,000. Rating fees in excess of $20,000, and so our recommendation is to move forward with this. Ask the risk with going with option 2, which is not to go forward with this one. And Mr. Brown stated that the major risk was getting as good a bid, and we could turn around and have a larger bid and then incur all that cost. And so we move forward with the recommendation to the board. After that, and there's another financial piece that was in the special budget committee meetings that I could not make because I had to be a part of some earlier conference calls, and maybe Mr. Franco handled that, or Matt, and somebody may have to help with that when we get to the resolution. I'm going to now focus on the ERP update in terms of implementation. You know, we've heard about that, we've looked at that, and know that we are in a COVID environment, and they're still pushing hard and forward to try to maintain as much as they can, but there will be some impact. Mr. Cooper, director of the EPMO, provided a history of the project, and we went through that to get some update. We talked about some of the issues relative to the impact. Obviously, the issue of transitioning from Lawson has been in place so many years to Oracle, and from an ownership perspective and increased knowledge transfer effectiveness, it is prudent that DC Water staff prepare an as-is scenario going forward, documenting everything. And so they are continuing to do that. They have schedules. They're trying to maintain to deal with that. I did ask them what they determined to be an impact of COVID-19 on the project implementation and the implementation schedule. And Mr. Cooper responded that because of the unknowns, it's very difficult to plan under circumstances, and I agree. Nothing that the plan has been thoroughly reviewed and identified some of the activities to be dealt with and assessed. So they're moving strong. It's a good look. Haven't been around a number of ERP implementations. They're making good progress. They're trying to deal with their contingencies as well. And I did just caution them that the schedule you have in place, reported previously, and that was considered and looked at our meeting, could change on them, and they noted that. Mr. Gray talked about the culture transformation, and that is to try to get people to deal with the issue of reinforcing the change in the operations. He stated that 30 to 40 staff members are part of the change management team. Change management is always a interesting part of the process when you're implementing ERP, but they're making good progress on that. And so I'm confident that there's not only commitment, but strong participation. Just may be some impact on the timing of when they will be able to complete full implementation. We went to well, let me move into okay, I guess I'll just focus on Mr. Hartman's piece, where he talked about the 2012 series debt, and that would generate $53 million in present value savings. And last fall, DC Water did a taxable advance funding, as we recall, series 2013 bonds in the amount of $350 million, and achieved a $50 million savings at the time. And before the COVID-19 issues, PFM was already in the process of distributing a RFP in order to deal with DC Water and working with DC Water banking team to look at this, the RFP is a direct purchase by JP Morgan or one of its affiliates to do a bank loan with a private placement. The JP Morgan loan that would be delivered in the future to realize a $53 million present savings, and so that's a strong consideration. There we got a benefit out of the last one we did, and so that's a part of this consideration. Earlier this week, at that time last week, they stood at 3.5%. That reflected a real major rush to liquidity, where everyone was trying to liquidate securities, and the real opportunity for savings at DC Water is a direct purchase loan, which could create significant savings. This differs from the traditional bond that DC Water would usually do. JP Morgan would do a forward loan for 2022 in the amount of approximately $300 million that will not close until 2 years from now. Within that time, there are conditions that would have to be met. One is to maintain DC Water's credit rating and no changes in the tax laws. After closing, any proceeds have been delivered lower interest in 2022. The risks go down substantially, and one risk is that DC Water rating could fall to a BBB minus or A. So. Sorry, I did something that hopefully was the right thing here. All right, so I think that gives an overview, and probably still too long, as was the meeting, and we move into our action items. And Matt, you're gonna have to help me because with the action items, I probably do not have the one that was completed this morning, but we want to have considered by the board. Maybe I can move down to. So approval of make sure I'm looking at everything we need to have. Hold on, go to the next page, see if I got that. Nope. All right, so I have screwed up my computer, is trying to do all kinds of other things. Okay, so Matt, help me in terms of, I got the approval for the ERP renewal, as well as independent risk management and consultant services. The substitute letters of credit. Now, are all of these a part of the along with the resolution that I believe Mr. Gaddis may have mentioned in terms of 20.36, which is an additional to this because of the private. So I'm trying to make sure I have all the pieces lined up that we are to consider. Got authorization resolution, Third Amendment, all of the LOCs for reimbursement, as well as approval of the new credit facility that we talked about, and attachment resolution. Where in the board can I point to those things that are recommendations for all in one place? Recommendations for
Sure, Mr. Rick, this is Matt Brown. You called out the items that are in the joint use. The non-joint use items are listed on page 3 of the board packet, and they include the letters of credit items. The TD Bank item.
Should we move on that now, or is that later?
That's later, sir. That's as part of the consent agenda.
Great. Okay, so we finished at 12:58. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, is that complete, Major?
Yes, I'm sorry, Tommy. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, any questions? All right, there being no questions, we'll move on to issues of general interest. Does anybody have an issue for, anybody want to raise anything for issues of general interest? All right, we'll move on to our general manager's report. Mr. Gaddis?
Chairman Wells, thank you very much, and board members, thank you very much. I will start out with talking about our State of the Utility address that I made in February, where I outlined some of the key agenda items for the authority. These agenda items will ensure we function as a high-performing team. One of the things that we talked about at our retreat, if most of you remember, we are still continuing to work on being resilient and ready, and we will strengthen the engagement with our customers. Were the really three focused agenda items going forward that I reported on in February. We are committed to collaborating with the board and on these items. And one of the things that, if you remember from the retreat as well, we talked about dream, decide, and deliver stage. Hopefully the Friday reports that I am giving to the board every Friday, talking about the dream, decide, and deliver stages is helpful in moving us forward, and also staying in communication with you all as board members. This month, I am proud to highlight our work to enhance our business development plan and foster diversity and inclusion at DC Water. I'm tremendously proud of the work that we've done thus far in these efforts, which will build on DC Water and reflects and supports the community that we serve. In the business development plan, which is in the dream stage, and Ms. Boardman did an excellent job this morning providing us with an excellent overview and summary of the discussion at the Governance Committee. And I want to emphasize and add a couple of points myself this morning to that, to our business development plan. First, we appreciate all the helpful dialogue and questions and comments through the Governance Committee, and welcome any further engagement. The proposed changes to the plan are designed to ensure compliance, program best practices, and most importantly, to ensure our certified businesses have full and fair opportunities to compete for DC Water's purchases, prime contracts, and associated subcontracts. The revised plan has not yet advanced to the full board, and we encourage you to take a look at the proposed changes and ask questions while the updates are under consideration. Secondly, I want to underscore our collaboration and outreach with the community that helped shape our proposal around our business development plan. Over several months last year, DC Water conducted 7 information sessions to collect feedback from DSLBD, federal agencies, universities, and over 80 firms. We received over 40 comments and suggestions through this process, which are reflected in the proposed changes. We continue to encourage and support participation on our contracts and our projects. I want to thank the Governance Committee, also Corey Gray, Dan Bay, and their teams for the strong work and continual efforts to support our community and our small businesses and our business development plan. Given the difficult economic times we face, their efforts are especially needed now and in the months to come as we work through the COVID-19 issues that we have. The other item I want to talk about today that's in the dream stage, and we attempted to move fast as we got information from the board and we got feedback from our staff, and that is our diversity and inclusion, which is in the dream stage. And we really would like the board's participation as we develop our diversity and inclusion process and program here at DC Water. I'm proud to introduce the integrated concept to cultivating and celebrating diversity and inclusion at DC Water. This is a priority for DC Water without a doubt, and we're launching in the dream stage that I talked about, where we are inviting you into our thinking and welcome your input as board members as we shape our inclusion. Creating an inclusive organization goes beyond race and gender and begins with respect, listening to all perspectives, embracing our differences, and being intentional about our actions. Diversity and inclusion isn't a program for us here at DC Water. Diversity and inclusion is a strategy to help shape the narrative of what we want to be as an organization, both internally and in the marketplace as well. We will first link the strategy and the goals of DC Water to diversity and inclusion strategy, and then we will look to establish priorities and solutions to align our goals. While we're early in our thinking on diversity and inclusion, some expected components will be the following: a refreshed woman of water, which is also known as WOW in our organization, that fosters leadership across the organization. Secondly, a performance-based culture and refreshing our recognition program. And number three, a team led by our new EVP and People and Talent, Lisa Stone. And with that, I want to emphasize that ownership of diversity and inclusion will be shared across the authority and as an organization. An inclusive environment is everyone's responsibility here at DC Water, and we truly believe that. As we establish our strategy and programs, we will bring them forward for discussion with you, the board members, through our Human Resources and Labor Relations Committee. I'm excited by where we are going with diversity and inclusion. I look forward to continuing to make a business impact with your support and guidance. I want to thank Lisa Stone for her leadership and her team on these items that are critical to serving our People and Talent group. I look forward to presenting additional status reports in the months to come to the board. And just a couple of updates as I conclude here, and we'll talk about this, I think, later on, maybe in our executive session as well. But COVID-19, under the leadership of the EVP of Administration, Maureen Coleman, was activated, and the Authority's Incident Management Team, also known as IMT, on March 16 to assist in managing the mitigation and response efforts and to establish a common operating picture for the coronavirus and COVID-19 pandemic efforts. The planning session and liaison efforts for the IMT are facilitated by our OEM Director, Dusty Louds, and Manager, Jared Hill. We have established a battle rhythm for planning meetings, operation briefs, and document facilitation has been established, which Maureen will go into a little bit more in depth. We continue to provide direct messages from leadership and to staff, coordinate with the district HCEMA and regional stakeholders, and provide steady updates to pipeline for staff to have a trusted source of information about the pandemic. Also, just want to talk about the last month, one of the things that I did was I sent a letter to Congress urging members to include financial relief for water utilities in the stimulus package across the country, and that they should consider this. The letter was signed and supported by a number of utility leaders from across the country, and water industry organizations coordinated their efforts with DC Water by sending their own letters signed by different organization leaders, including NACWA, AWWA, and the U.S. Water Alliance. Just real quick on the customer assistance program, it continues to grow. This year, over 2,700 customers have enrolled in our programs, including a 34% increase in CAP 2. So definitely the outreach that we're having regarding our CAP programs is definitely increasing and having a positive impact. From an operational safety standpoint, I wanted to report that safety is improving at DC Water. It has definitely become part of the culture at DC Water. Last month, we trained 95% of the Department of Wastewater Engineering employees on confined space and entry. The departments were collaborating with to establish additional safety courses for the staff. So I congratulate our safety group for the work that they are doing. And last but not least, last month, from an innovation standpoint, Matt Reese, Director of Sustainability and Watershed Management, delivered a keynote address for the American Society of Civil Engineers. And I received many letters from individuals at that organization that Matt did a fantastic job. And I definitely wanted to call out Matt for his for the speech that he made to this organization, and that he did a fantastic job in working with the civil engineers and the American Society for Civil Engineers and Industry Leaders. So, Mr. Chair, that does conclude my report. Be happy to answer any questions that any board members may have.
Okay. Recognizing that we will be going into executive session later, but are there any questions related to the report for our general manager? All right. Thank you, Mr. Gaddis.
Thank you.
Moving on to our Ms. Manley. Is there anything I'm to do under the contract summary, number 8?
No, that's just for FYI.
Okay, so let's move on to the consent items joint use as amended. Normally I read all of these and or I note just briefly what they're for, but everybody has the agenda, and in interest of time, unless people want the list read, can I get a motion to approve the consent items joint use as amended?
This is Randy Bartlett, so move.
Major Riddick, second.
Okay, any discussion? There being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 I note,
Aye.
okay. All opposed? And note that it was unanimous. The consent items joint use are approved. The consent items non-joint use, can I get a motion from a district member to approve?
Chairman Wells, before I make a motion to approve, I just wanted to provide in the interest of disclosure, that regarding the JP Morgan refinancing, just full disclosure that my company is involved in a joint venture with JP Morgan as the equity for a real estate development project. I don't believe that this poses a conflict, but I just wanted to provide full disclosure.
Thank you very much. I'm also aware that you've got guidance from our general counsel, and so I appreciate the notice. So duly noted. And can I get a motion to approve the consent joint use items, non-joint use?
Mr. Chair, I second the motion. This is Crystal.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The consent items joint use are approved. With that, will someone make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to the Open Meetings Amendment Act of 2010, discuss legal, confidential, or privileged matters under DC Official Code Section 2-575B4?
So moved. It's Ellen.
Can I get a second?
Neil Thompson, second.
And then will the secretary, Ms. Manley, please take a roll call vote?
Chairman Wells,
Yes.
Jed Ross, Crystal Brumfield,
Yes.
Joe Leonard, Ross Nabat, Reverend Terry.
Yes.
David Franco.
Yes.
Howard Gibbs.
Yes.
Ellen Boardman. Neil
Yes.
Thompson. Ivan Fishberg. Fariba Fasiri.
Yes.
John Hockenberg. Adam Ortiz.
Yes.
Steve Chauffeur.
Yes.
Florida Pope. Elizabeth Baxter.
Yes.
Randy
Yes.
Bartlett. And Sarah Moss.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, board members, you will have to disconnect from this, leave this line and connect to the executive session line.
And we all have
All
the
right.
executive session in our calendar, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. All right, everybody, we're going to disconnect and then go to your calendar, and you'll see that the executive session dial-in is there. Thank you very much.